Everyone, and welcome to this webinar on e-commerce photography. My name is Joshua Miller, and today I'll be talking about how to be successful with your product photography. As we move through this presentation, we'll cover some topics and then we'll look at some examples. But first, why it matters. Imagine walking into a physical store and seeing products displayed on the shelves. You can touch them, you can feel the details, and you get a sense of their quality. But in e-commerce, your photos are your customers' only way to experience your products. This is why high-quality product photography is so crucial. It builds trust. Customers can assess the quality and authenticity of your products based on a clear, well-lit photo. It enhances engagement. So visually appealing photos can capture attention and encourage customers to explore your product offerings. It can also increase conversions. Customers are more likely to make a purchase when they see exactly what they're getting and they feel confident in their decision. It establishes brand identity. Consistent product photography can reinforce your brand's aesthetic and values. So remember, your photos are the first impression your customers have of your products. So let's make it a good one. Let us start by discussing the essential equipment you need to create professional looking photos. And while it may be tempting to go out and invest in expensive equipment, you can achieve great results with just a few essential items. First, a smartphone or a DSLR camera is sufficient for most e-commerce product photography. A tripod is crucial for ensuring the stability and preventing any blurry images. Natural light is often preferred for its soft and flattering quality. However, if you want more control over lighting conditions, you can invest in artificial lighting setups with softboxes, ring lights, or other flash. A plain backdrop provides a clean and uncluttered background, allowing your products to take center stage, and you can consider using different colors or textures to create a variety of looks. There are a handful of optional pieces of equipment you can consider depending on what you are trying to achieve as well. Reflectors can be used to bounce light onto your subject, filling in shadows and creating a more even illumination. They're a versatile tool that can enhance your photos. Lens diffusers can soften the light from your flash or artificial lighting setup and create a more natural look. A macro lens can be helpful for taking pictures of small details, allowing customers to appreciate the intricate features and textures. You'll want to consider your specific needs and budget when deciding which optional equipment to invest in. And again, these are only a few examples of the optional equipment. So here's a couple examples. The first couple images we see, again, the tripods. The first one's going to be for a mobile device. It's a very basic and simple tabletop tripod. The second one is a tripod mount for a DSLR camera. In the third image, you'll see that we have a little bit more of a studio setup there with a couple light stands and the tripod, but more focusing on the simple backdrop, just a white paper roll draped over a table, putting your products front and center. The first picture on the bottom screen is going to be another take on just that simple white backdrop with two foam board pieces just mounted against each other. And the last image here, again, this is where you can use a reflector to bounce that natural light. So the natural light's coming in from a window or a door on the right-hand side, and you're going to see it being reflected with the reflector to remove the shadow behind the products on the left-hand side there. So we have a basic understanding of the equipment you'll need. So let's discuss some lighting techniques, because lighting plays a crucial role in creating visually appealing product photos. And natural light is often preferred for product photography due to its soft and flattering quality. So position your product near a window to benefit from ample natural light, and avoid direct sunlight as it can create harsh shadows and uneven lighting. If the sunlight is too bright, use curtains or sheer to drape and diffuse the light and create a softer effect. The time of day can also influence the quality of natural light, so early morning or late afternoon often provide the most ideal lighting conditions. Experiment with different angles to find the most flattering lighting for your product. Consider factors like the shadows, highlights, and overall appearance of your photo. If you look at the two samples on the screen here, the first one is going to be, again, the products in front of some natural light coming in from a window. And there's most likely a reflector there that's bouncing the light off to give an even light across all the products in the basket. The second image there, There's a little bit more with diffusing the light coming in with frosted on the windows and the sheer drape there, but still a nice, even, natural, soft light. So we've talked about lighting, so let's talk about composition. A well-composed photo can make a significant difference in how your products are perceived. A cluttered background can distract from your product and make it difficult for customers to focus on the details. You want to remove any unnecessary props or distractions that aren't directly related to your product. Ensuring the background is clean and uncluttered to create a professional and polished look. The goal is to draw attention to your product, not to the background. So focus on the product itself to avoid the overcrowding scene. Too many elements can create visual clutter and make the photo difficult to understand. If you look at the image here, again, this is an example of too much clutter. We do not know what product it is that we're actually looking at. Is this office supplies? Is this coffee mugs? Is this books? Is it a combination of a couple of them? It's really hard to tell, and there's not one place that draws our eye in to say this is what we want to draw your attention to and focus on. While a clean background is essential, you can also use backdrops and props to enhance the visual appeal of your product photos. So backdrops can add depth and visual interest to your product photos. Choose a backdrop that complements the color, the style, and the theme of your product. Consider different colors, textures, and patterns, and they're going to create a variety of looks for you. Props can be used to create a story or context around your product as well. For example, if you're selling a book, you could use props like a coffee cup and a cozy blanket to create a reading atmosphere. But avoid overwhelming the product with too many props, like we saw in the picture on the previous slide. The focus should always be on the product itself. Experiment with different setups to find the most effective combination of backdrop and props for your products. So here's a few examples of what we just discussed. The first one is going to be just a simple take on changing the color from a traditional white or black background. And I'm sure that this color would be very complementary to whatever product we place front and center. The second one, a prop is used in just to change the way that the jewelry is displayed. The third one here does a great job to give a very natural feeling for, maybe a healthcare product or a beauty product that would most likely be placed front and center on the rock there. We have the green backdrop. We have the shadow of most likely leaves from a plant or a tree, the rocks, and then the flowers. The first picture on the bottom screen is a great display of a gift set for a holiday. You can see the ornaments in there. It's again telling you that it's holiday time, but the product is already packaged and ready to go as a complete gift set. And they do a great job with giving you that the extra details there without taking the focus away from the products. Then we have two images of food photography here, showing you some different textures and colors within the background. We're highlighting the ingredients of the food. We're showing you, again, the different, you got a lot of different colors there, but your eye is still drawn in towards the food and it's not distracting. It's not taking you away from the overall intent of these photos. So now that we've talked about composition and styling, let's explore some technical tips to ensure that your product photos are of the highest quality. Choosing the highest resolution possible will provide you with more flexibility when editing and resizing your photos. Grid lines can help you achieve better composition by dividing the image into equal parts. And avoid using the digital zoom as it can reduce image quality. Instead, if needed, get closer to your subject for a more natural and detailed shot. The tripod is essential for preventing camera shake and ensuring a sharp, clear image. And consider using manual focus for precise control over the focus point, especially when you're photographing small or intricate details. So let's take a minute now and talk about lighting and your white balance. Light is measured on a temperature scale called the Kelvin scale. So understanding white balance and the Kelvin is crucial for achieving accurate color representation in your product photos. White balance can affect the color temperature of your photos, determining whether they're going to appear too warm, which is yellowish, or too cool, which is going to be more bluish. If your photos have a color cast, again, too warm or too cool, you can adjust the white balance to correct it. So consider the lighting conditions when you're setting your white balance. And experiment with different white balance settings to find the one that best matches the color temperature of your scene. Remember, you can always adjust the white balance in post-processing if needed as well. Another important technical aspect to consider is your depth of field, which controls the focus and the blur in your photos. So understanding the f-stop and the depth of field is very crucial. F-stop controls the aperture of your lens, which affects the amount of light that enters the camera. So a lower f-stop, for example, f1.8, creates a shallower depth of field, meaning less of the image will be in focus. And this can be used to isolate your subject and blur the background. A higher f-stop, for example, maybe an f16, creates a deeper depth of field, meaning more of the image will be in focus. And this can be used for ensuring that all elements of your products are sharp. So consider the focus point and your desired effect when you're choosing your f-stop. And if you want to isolate your product, you're going to go with a shallower depth of field. If you want to ensure that all the details are in focus, a deeper depth of field may be better. And you can experiment with different f-stops to see how they affect the depth of field in your photos and with your products to choose the one that best suits your needs. If you look at the couple examples we have on the screen here, a little bit more of a shallower depth of field with the coffee where the front coffee cup is in focus, and the back one, again, is starting to be a little bit, you have a little bit more of a blur to it. But if we look at the face of the watch, this is going to have a little bit more of a deeper depth of field than the coffee mugs there, but still not as great as it could be. But again, more details in that face are going to be in focus. Here's a great diagram that gives you another look at understanding your f-stop and the depth of field. So at the top, you can see the apertures ranging, and then you see as the depth of field changes where your products are in focus, and it continues to get deeper where the entire image is going to be in focus. So post-processing is an essential step in creating professional-looking product photos as well. Even with the best camera settings and lighting, there still may be areas that need refinement. So first, start by cropping and rotating your image to ensure its desired size and orientation. Then adjust the brightness, contrast, and color to enhance the overall appearance of your photo. Remember to keep an eye on your white balance to make sure that your picture is not too warm or cool either. Then we can go on and start removing any blemishes or imperfections that may be present in the image. This can include things like dust or smudges and glare marks on like glass objects. You can also consider adding texture overlays to provide additional information or branding elements. Another thing to consider is if you have a large number of photos to edit, you can consider using a batch editing tool to streamline the process and save yourself some time. Consistency is key when it comes to your product photography. By maintaining a consistent style, you can strengthen your brand identity and create a cohesive visual experience for your customers. Developing a consistent style guide will help you maintain a cohesive look across your product photos and adhere to the same editing techniques to ensure a uniform appearance. Use the consistent background or setting to create a recognizable and memorable visual identity. This will also help you maintain a consistent color palette to reinforce your brand's aesthetic. So consider incorporating branding elements as well, like logos or watermarks and some other design elements into your product photos to strengthen that brand recognition. By maintaining consistency, you can create a strong and memorable visual brand that resonates with your customers. Here's a great example of a website that is very consistent with their product photography. So as you can see here, they're going to use the same backdrop, even with different products. There's a similar layout where the product is front and centered. You get to see the whole product in the first image. And if you visit this website, as you go through it, there will be additional pictures beyond the ones you see here that'll get more detailed. They'll show different parts of the product. They'll also show lifestyle shots where they're going to show the product in use. And this may be where someone is using the products or maybe displayed on a desk with some of the other products that the company sells. But they do a fantastic job of showing you ways to stay consistent and on brand with everything from the first image to the last image for each product. You also want to remember to take an extra minute and look at your setup. As you're setting up the product, as you're getting ready to take the picture, even after you're taking the picture and you're working post processing, you want to pay attention to the details. And here are some examples of things that I see too often in product photography with businesses. First, we like plastic wraps and seals. You want to remove products. Think of your product photography as like a sample product in a store. It's going to be open. It's going to allow the customer to be able to try it, taste it, use it. You want to do the same thing with your product photography. So we want to remove the seals. We want to remove it from packaging. One of the things that the plastic wrap and those seals are going to do is give you, glare from your lighting. It's also going to make it hard to see what may be inside the package or the wrapping. Another thing is the packaging. Take it out of the box. There may be a time to include the packaging with the product itself, but the main image, we want to make sure that we see the product outside of the packaging so the customer knows what they're getting. Price tags and barcodes. We don't want to have, we visually don't want to see the price tags. We don't want to see barcodes when we're looking at the products. Now, unless it's on part of the label that also has some of the other main information that has to be shown, but typically you're going to want to show that in, additional pictures inside the product description. But the price is going to be listed elsewhere on your e-commerce site. So we don't need to see a price tag that's going to stand out on the front of a package. Labels, making sure that they're printed properly, that they're straight, there's no smudges on them, there's not missing ink, that they're the right side up. And then, keep an eye out for glare and shadows as well. So if you look at the first image there's some shadows between those different bottles, and there's also some highlights there. And between those two elements, as well as a very detailed and textured background, it can be a lot to focus on. And there's spots where the label can be hard to see because of the way the shadow cast over some of the wording, and then other parts of the label that can be challenging to see because of the highlights. Also, you'll see there too where the product is held by hand. And while this can be a great way to show the sizing and the use of a product to have a hand in the place, we don't want to necessarily have this as our main photo. This is another great example of a secondary photo we can include in the description, but we want to remove the elements of the hand. We don't want that to be distracting and taking away from the product itself. So by following the tips and the techniques that we've discussed here, you can create high quality product photos that can capture attention, build trust, and drive sales. Remember, product photography is an investment that can pay off in the long run. So by investing in essential equipment, mastering some lighting techniques, paying attention to the composition and your styling, you can create visually appealing product photos. You want to utilize your camera settings, such as like the white balance and the depth of field, which is going to ensure your photos are of the highest quality, and then use edits to fine tune your images and create that polished look. Again, take that extra minute and look at the details. And most importantly, find your brand identity and stay consistent. You don't want to confuse your customer. By following these guidelines, you can effectively use your product photography to drive sales and grow your e-commerce business. And finally, rules are meant to be broken. So if you find something that works for your product and your customers, it's okay to run with it. Thank you for taking the time to watch this. Hopefully you found some of the information valuable that you will be able to apply to your business and your product photography. And thanks again.